Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast, Inside Equine Minds, where I, Caitlin Hendry, meet with various horse professionals, trainers, riders, grooms, to dive deep inside the minds of the most successful horses in various disciplines. I'll take you behind the scenes from the horse's perspective to learn about how these horses are trained and managed in a way that strengthens their mental game and has fueled their massive success. This podcast is brought to you by EQPI, or Equine Performance Identities, a personality profiling tool for horses that guides people to becoming the partner their horse actually needs. We all want our horses to be a happy and willing partner and to enjoy spending time with us. An EQPI profile gives you the information about your horse's individual needs and motivations, so you can adapt the way that you're working with them to ensure just that. And should we decide that we're just not the best person for our horse, or circumstances lead us to having to sell or lease, EQPI is a great tool for sharing what your horse's temperament is to ensure they do get a good match with their next person. Or maybe you love your horse so much that you want more of them and you decide that you want to breed. An EQPI profile provides invaluable information about temperament, so you can really make sure you're looking at the full picture when you're choosing the best stallion or mare for your horse. In today's episode of Inside Equine Minds, I have the pleasure of speaking with Monty Buntin, who is an NCHA, National Cutting Horse Association Hall of Famer. And we will be talking about Cat Play, who is also in the Hall of Fame. He is a 2016 quarter horse gelding owned by Debbie Day and the Day Cole Investment Company. Cat Play has a slew of accomplishments in the cutting horse world. It started with success in the amateur divisions as a 5-year-old with his then owner, Hal Harvey Keene. Debbie Day then bought Cat Play in 2022, and in 2023, Monty rode Cat Play to the Reserve World Champion with the NCHA. And I think the biggest thing to point out here, and the most impressive thing, is that they got Reserve World Champion with only 39 shows, and to put that into a relative perspective, the horse who won World Champion went to 97 shows, and the horse that was third in that ranking went to 86. So Monty and Cat Play did phenomenally well with a much fewer amount of competitions. But their success did not end in 2023. In addition to being the co-champion of the 2023 World Finals, Monty and Cat Play got second in the Cutting Horse Challenge at the Run for a Million in August of 24, and they ended the year in 2024 with being 5th in the world rankings, in addition to Cat Play officially making it into the NCHA Hall of Fame. So yeah, I think saying that Cat Play is an accomplished cutting horse is a little bit of an understatement. So I'm really excited to talk to Monty about how he has helped Cat Play reach this massive level of success. But before we do so, like we always do, let's do a quick overview of what Cat Play's EQPI personality profile is. In order to get Cat Play's profile, Mila Wilkinson, who is Monty's loper and who takes care of and gets Cat Play ready at the different competitions, she went online and took the EQPI assessment or survey. It's a 10-minute online survey. It's available on our website. Then using Mila's inputs, I am able to then analyze and create a personality profile for Cat Play. An EQPI profile measures 4 spectrums of behavior. In addition to looking at the individual spectrums, I then also look at how these spectrums relate to each other. And it's through these nuances that we're really able to get a better understanding of Cat Play's individual personality profile and the needs and motivations associated with it. So, the 4 spectrums that EQPI measures is independence, which is the horse's preference to control or comply, extroversion, which is the horse's preference to interact or isolate, and stability, which is the horse's preference for predictability or variety, and lastly, structure, which is the horse's preference for clarity or flexibility. For the independence spectrum, Cat Play is considered slightly high, so it's not a super strong spectrum for him. In fact, the only spectrum that is really strong for him is the structure spectrum, which we'll get to. But for the independence spectrum, he's only slightly high. So we'll see some slight preferences. For example, high independence horses are typically driven by the need for control. And so they usually like more autonomy. They like to make their own decisions. If they're not bought into something, high independence horses are usually more comfortable with conflict, and so they're not necessarily afraid to tell you if they're not finding something mentally challenging. Although I don't think that will necessarily be the case for cat play because he is really high structure, and so he wants to do what's right and wants to follow the rules. Cat play is also slightly high on the extroversion spectrum, so he will be motivated by maybe getting attention or by social interactions. He will need to have the freedom to express himself because high extroversion horses emote externally. So if they're thinking or feeling something, they need to have that freedom to have that expression, or else that extroversion, the high extroversion needs won't be met. For the stability spectrum, cat play is considered situational, so he really doesn't have a super strong preference one way or another. And so for situational spectrums, the way that we know how this will actually influence the horse is by looking at how it relates to other spectrums on the horse's profile. For example, it is quite a bit lower than his high structure, and when the structure spectrum is higher than the stability spectrum, the horse is going to be more careful with rules. They usually do much better in a program where there's consistency and clarity, and the rules are the same and they don't change, and they know exactly what to expect every day. Cat play stability spectrum is also lower, but not by much, to his independence and his extroversion spectrums. When independence is higher than stability, we usually say that the horse is more proactive in its thinking. So they may anticipate a little bit more. They may be a little bit more forward thinking when you're working with them. When the extroversion spectrum is higher than the stability spectrum, that adds some speed and energy to how they interact. And so with new people or new horses, he may be more quick to connect. However, he may not be because his structure is so high, and the structure spectrum is really where that trust comes in. So even if he may want to connect with others quickly, that high structure is going to sort of create a barrier in that you have to really build his trust up first. All right, I've mentioned the structure spectrum a few times now, so let's dive into that one. Again, cat play is very high structure, and this is his strongest spectrum, so it's going to influence his behavior the most. High structure horses like things to be very black and white. They want things to be very clear and simple. They like to know the right answer. They like to be right. They like to know what's expected of them. And so these are all needs that have to be met in order to help a high structure horse be confident and comfortable and their best selves. We've also talked about a few of the relationships between the spectrums already, but here are a couple that I haven't mentioned yet. The first is that his structure is higher than his independence. And when we have that relationship, these horses are much more risk averse. And so it basically amplifies the needs of the high structure in needing that clarity and needing to know what's expected of them. Anything that you can do to really break things down into simple steps to mitigate any sort of ambiguity or risk of doing something wrong will be very beneficial for these sorts of risk-averse horses. The other relationship we haven't talked about yet is between his high structure and his slightly high extroversion. So again, his structure is higher than his extroversion. And I did mention a little bit as far as that element of trust in social situations. So the extroversion is where we see the social elements, right? And the structure is where we see the trust elements. So if a horse is high structure, trust is very important. And so that's where the overlap happens and where we see that then trust in relationships is very important when the structure is higher than the extroversion, even if the extroversion is higher than the stability spectrum, which makes cat play more quick to connect and want to connect with others. But there's still that element of trust that's more important to him. If you want to see Cat Play's ECPI profile in more detail, or any of the guest horses that we talk about on this podcast, they are all available for a very nominal fee on the Inside Equine Minds Patreon account. But without further delay, now that we all have the same basic understanding of Cat Play's ECPI profile, let's talk to Monty. Cat Play has been with you for 2 years now, right? I think I saw you got the ride in 2022.
Yeah, right around 2 years.
Now that you've gotten to know him and you've had a couple of years under your belt with him, what would you say is your favorite thing about Cat Play and his personality?
I love that he's all business. I mean, I love that he's everything that he does, or everything that you do with him, he takes very seriously. But then again, he's got a real love for his job. When you show him or work him on a cow, you can feel that natural desire, like a good border collie sneaking around sheep. And I mean, I would compare him, if he were a dog, he would be an excellent border collie. I mean, he's very loyal, very serious, but loves to do what he does.
Where do you think that love comes from? Like, do you think it's instinct, or do you think it's because he, knows the job now and so he knows what the right answer is? Like, what do you think leads to that feeling of him loving that job?
I know that they're born that way. They either love it or they don't love it. Some horses are good at it and don't love it. The great ones have to be both. I mean, there's horses like him and others, a few others, very few. You don't have to ever encourage. You just have to discipline, may be the wrong word, but help them have structure in how they do it. I've never had to encourage that horse to do it, no matter the situation or how many cows I have to work on him. Or, I mean, he will keep trying until the bitter end because of his own desires. I've never had to encourage him. That's probably how I'd explain that.
And then on the flip side of that coin, what would you say is the most challenging thing that you've learned about his personality and how to work with him?
It's easy to be blind to those things when you love them so much and they've done so much for you. But the reality is he requires more time than most horses. He's claustrophobic, so you can't put him in tight places. So saddling him and those kind of things, Mila that gets him ready has to, give him plenty of room and time. And like he likes his space. So you can't just go, run over there and tie him to a horse trailer and saddle him up real fast and jump on and trot to the arena. I mean, you can't. So there's some inconvenience in that, but so well worth it. I wouldn't call it really a challenge. I think that it takes him a little while after a short break to get back in the groove of being disciplined enough to compete, because he'll be so wildly, sort of erratically excited about cutting that he'll make mistakes because of that. I'm grateful for that. It's not really a challenge because that's what makes him so good.
Yeah. You mentioned excitement. Is there some nerves to that as well? Like that if he takes a break and then comes back, like it's kind of a change of routine, even though it's a job he knows very well. I think sometimes people interpret excitement and then nerves or anxiety as the same thing, but I think it's important to distinguish between them. So I'm just wondering, from your opinion, which do you feel like it is?
Yeah, I think definitely nerves, because he's such a good horse and his desire to please is so good. He doesn't want to get in trouble when he's being fresh and overexcited. He knows what he's supposed to do, but it's kind of got to get it out of his system. I mean, if you've ever seen you let a little kid out of a car after they've been strapped in a car seat for 5 hours, they got to run, even though they're not supposed to run in the parking lot. So yeah, I think it makes him nervous when he's being a little erratic, makes him a little bit, be a little anxious and stuff. I think the relationship he and I have now, he knows he's not going to be in trouble. So he's gotten more comfortable, but definitely, I think because he's being a little erratic and wild, he knows it's wrong. You can feel his heart thumping through the saddle, and once he's been worked, 2 to 3 to 4 days in a row, or if he's being shown consistently, he just stays all business. He doesn't get so wild and worked up.
He kind of settles into it a bit.
Yeah, he's confident. You just feel the confidence level in him. I mean, I could tell if he's going to be on his game, riding to the herd, just riding to the herd. I know if it's up to just me or if I got to try to reel him in a little bit. Usually those times when I compete on him and he's I feel like I have to be really sharp myself is the times when he hasn't been showed in a little while. As soon as he falls into his groove, there's no stopping him.
Yeah, I'm hearing a couple things because while he is on the high independence side, it's only slightly. So there is some potential braveness there, but it's not a super strong spectrum for him. But his strongest spectrum is his high structure. And high structure horses get more confidence the more they do something. And they also are more risk averse. They want to know what's right or wrong. So it's interesting to hear you say, like, he wants to be right. He doesn't want to let you down. Like, he wants to do the job. So I'm definitely hearing some of that come in. When you say, on the ride to the ring, whether or not it's up to you or if you need to reel him in a bit, what is he doing?
It's just his energy. It's his energy. I feel that anxious horse under me a little bit. When he's riding the herd and he's feeling groovy and feeling confident, he's kind of swags his head left and right when I'm riding towards the herd of cows, and I can't feel his heart beating. He's loose, he's relaxed, he's comfortable, and he's very cocky in a way, And when he's a little bit amped and feels like he's, you feel a little explosion that I can tell he's just holding in, So it doesn't necessarily always keep him from doing well, but it makes me feel as if I need to be a little sharper, a little quieter, need to control my energy and my heartbeat, and those kind of things. And he feels that and comes to me pretty quick. But once he's on a roll, it's like he doesn't need me as bad as I need him.
How would you describe his energy level? Like, would you describe him as a high energy horse or as a lower energy horse?
Or definitely above average in terms of energy. Not a hot horse like a rodeo horse or something where he wants to run and but he's ears and eyes are always moving. He's always thinking. He's never standing there with a blank stare. I think that there's a lot going on up there in his mind, and he's very aware of his surroundings. So yeah, I would say I wouldn't call him hot, but I would consider him above average energetically.
And alert.
Very alert, yeah. Very feely and alert kind of horse. Nothing numb or dumb or slow or nothing like that.
Yeah, no, and I wouldn't think so. If I were to say, like, kind of pick an amateur friendly lesson type horse, they would be high stability, which is calm and methodical and prefers a steady pace, and then low structure, which is more laid back, forgiving, go with the flow. And he is situational stability, so not really high or low, but because his structure's higher than his stability spectrum, that kind of gives a little bit more of that carefulness and careful with rules, does better in a more consistent program, has more of that intuitive, what you said, feely, as you said.
Yeah. Western term there for you, but
yeah. Love it. So you mentioned that at shows, Mila has to take her time, getting him ready and all that sort of thing. What else have you figured out works well for him as far as preparing him for shows and competition?
Consistency is really important. The same person, the same routine, tries to, haul in the same trailer, have his,
really?
have his owner, Debbie Day, goes in every day and does some body work on him and, with some of the therapies and that kind of stuff. And he's used to all that. If a stranger walks in the stall, he'll be alert and concerned. If it's the normal people, and he just stays in a good groove. He's a creature of habit and likes his routines. And I think that's really important. I think for me as a trainer, I have to prepare him as if I don't care that much. If he feels the pressure coming from me, it'll get his mind going too fast. And I think he needs to. I'm always just trying to tell him, no big deal, And he does not want to lose a cow. And if he does, if I've lost very few cows on that horse, and the times I do, I feel like it sets him back a few days in terms of he'll want to react instead of respond to the situation in competition. And so consistency, good, smooth, confident energy around him and stuff is I think keeps him in a good place mentally. And that's really all there is to it. The rest of it all comes natural to him.
And anything in particular day to day to kind of keep him in that groove? You mentioned that Debbie does the body work. Do you do like hand walking or lunging or I don't know if you do like ring familiarization with cutting horses, but anything
Well,
like
I
that.
mean, if I understand what that means, yeah, like when I go to a show, me or Mila would get on him before he shows and ride him around in the area where he's going to be prepared and where he's going to
Hmm.
show and stuff like that. He's seasoned so well now that he's showed, competed successfully just about anywhere in the world that we've taken him or he'll ever go again. But we don't take that for granted. We definitely do, get if it's a really important show and it's a show where you get eliminated if you don't advance. We get there a day ahead of time, spend a little time on him in those arenas and stuff. If it's a show where it's day to day, each day is its own competition. It's not as critical, and usually he's fine anymore because he's been to all of those places. But definitely got to get him out of his stall a little more often than some horses because he's just active mentally and needs to do stuff and keep moving. And there's times we'll go to a show and if the stalls are small, we'll order 2 stalls and take the center out. So he's got a big stall. I mean, I have other horses and other good ones that their stall is their happy place. That's where their water bucket and their hay net is. And he's not unhappy in a stall, but I mean, they just as soon be in their stall. And he would prefer to be active. So that's definitely something we got to consider.
I think that's some of the high extroversion too. Again, his extroversion is not super high, but because his independence and his extroversion are both higher than his stability spectrum, they do tend to be sort of busier minds, like more proactive, more curious, a little bit faster paced, even though he's not on the low stability side and he's only situational. So yeah, I think it makes sense that he is kind of that busier mind. Do you ever give him enrichment in the stalls? Like you said you do a hay net, which I guess is a form of enrichment versus just kind of putting it on the ground, make him work for it a little bit. Some people like hang stuffed animals or.
Yeah. Well, the hay nets, in addition to his regular meals, that gives them something. And the kind of hay nets we use have the tight woven type nets, so it's a challenge to sit there and munch. So it just keeps them busy. That's not really their meals; it's just something for him to do. And yeah, he's had balls, and I mean,
Does he use them?
Yeah, he's not a very playful horse. I mean, he's just not that way. But I think I mean, that's probably more that we do what we can to entertain him because we love him. It's not critical to his performance in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, they've done all sorts of little things like that. But Mila's probably is a good key the last few years. I think that she's gone above and beyond in terms of paying attention to him. And making sure that he had the care in whatever way that was, getting him out of his stall or health wise, or making sure he goes to the ice spa. If he gets bored, she feels he's bored, she'll take him on a hand walk, maybe drop him off at the ice spa, give him something to do. So, without fatiguing him physically, we try to keep him busy mentally.
So that kind of brings me to at home. We talked about at shows. Is there anything particular you do at home to help manage him that takes his personality into account?
Yeah, I mean, we turn him out a lot. He spends a lot of time out in a trap, like just an outside pen. I think he loves that, and I think that's something you can't do very well at the show. So no, at home we don't need to hand walk him. We don't need to, I try to grab him if I've got some other things to do that aren't in the arena. Horseback, I take him out to, I think right before the World Finals this year, we took him over to the small ranch that I've got leased up the road, and just went for a big ride, checked all the fences, and rode around for about 3 hours just to do a little bit of work mentally on him. And that's not really individual to him. I think most high performance horses that spend a lot of time in the arena with a lot of concentrated training enjoy some miles without a lot of having to be that very thoughtful.
Yeah. Did he like it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, so it was not his first time doing it for sure. And yeah, he just puts his head down and trucks along and loves some time outside. We've got a big track around the ranch here 130 acres maybe, that goes all the way around the outskirts that Mila takes him on all the time on his days off. And so a way to keep him fit without loping him in an arena.
Do you normally, or does she normally go out with other horses or by herself?
Both, probably most of the time with somebody, but Mila will take him out by herself a lot, just on a day off on a Sunday or something, just to go get him out. He's comfortable either way. He's all business. He doesn't really he's not jacking around with other horses. It's just not it's not his game. He's not interested in arguing or playing with another horse. It's just, he's kind of businessman.
You mentioned earlier that with cutting horses in particular, that they're either born with the love of cutting or they're not. And so from a discipline standpoint, how much do you feel like personality has impacted his success as a cutting horse?
I don't think I'll ever know if it was different, if he would still perform that way. But I think there's a small chance of that being true. I think the way that he takes everything so seriously and how much he loves the game is the reason why he's so, he doesn't, he's an incredible athlete and an incredible intellectually and stylistically and all those things. But I think that his desire to win, when he works a cow, in his mind, he's competing with the cow. And you can't teach a horse to do that. You can teach him to mirror a cow. You can teach him to stay with a cow, but you can't teach him to want to hold the cow that bad. You can encourage it through relief and release when they do it as best as they can. But you can't ever, you can't explain to them that they need to try a little harder.
Mm-hmm.
All you can do is reward them when they do. So I hope that answers your question. I have had some great horses in the past that didn't have near as desirable of a personality as him, for sure. But I think what sets him apart from the others is all of the above.
And when you think of the characteristics of these top cutting horses, how do you feel like his personality compares? If you were to just kind of name the characteristics that are essential for a cutting horse.
I think the main thing they have in common is once you start working a cow, the level of desire, the need to try in their minds is the common denominator. Because stylistically they can be incredibly different. In terms of outside work, I think they can be a lot like other people. I mean, you may be the kind of person that likes to watch a lot of TV or sit inside and play video games, still be a really successful person. Or you might be the kind of person that needs to be golfing or hiking and needs to stay active all the time and still be successful at the same career path or sport that you love. So I don't think that I haven't given that a lot of thought, but I don't think that they're outside what they compete at. There's the common denominators are as close as when they do compete or when you're working them on a cow in this situation.
Right. So from a nature versus nurture perspective, I do feel like there's always a good debate there as far as which one influences behavior more. And obviously breeding in any discipline is important, but I feel like especially in the Western world, bloodlines are huge. And so what is your perspective on which one has the most influence on the personality of a horse?
I would say some of that's equal. I mean, in terms of how they handle, how they ride, how they are to be around, could certainly be influenced by their upbringing and however their mom raised them and however the people that weaned them and how they handled them and treated them and the group of horses they grew up with in a pasture. Those type of things can certainly have a huge effect on their personality, but I don't think they affect their performance, not even close to as much as their pedigree. And then some horses are just special. I mean, they just are born. They're born with it. They've got it. It's incredible. I think probably you could talk more into it if they could understand your words, but that's what's so amazing about a horse. If they're great, that was on their own account. I mean, nobody explained to them how much better it would be if they were. That's what makes them special. And with a human being, I mean, some people are made great by encouragement and different failures and stuff like that. I mean, a horse just either is or isn't. But I would say in some areas that would be equal in terms of their personality, but competition, it's got to be in their blood for cutting.
I was just going to ask, do you think that that's specific to cutting? Because it is like you can't use your reins at all, right? While they're on a cow,
right.
You can use your leg if I understand.
Yeah, you can use your legs. Once you get your cow separated from the herd, you're riding a loose horse. It is up to the horse to keep the cow from returning to the herd until the cow stops or turns away, which essentially gives up the challenge of getting back to the herd. And then you can pick up your hand, cue the horse to quit, and go get another cow. I do think to some extent that's specific to cutting, because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I mean, it's pretty hard to take a dachshund duck hunting. I mean,
Yeah,
they have to be
right.
bred to do the job that they're doing to be at a high
You
level.
mentioned the border collie. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fascinating. Those
exactly.
instincts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's, I mean, that's going to be pretty hard to compete with a border collie if you brought a dachshund hound. So I think that, certain events, reining, jumping, those type of things. I mean, that's going to be pretty hard for me to beat the high level jumping horses on cat play when he's not very tall.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think to some extent pedigree matters in most any competition, particularly when the horse has some freedom to do it with their own style, and they manipulate their bodies in their own unique ways, like a jumping horse or even a race horse or a cutting horse or a reining horse. And I know there's some events that aren't that way, but I would say it matters a lot.
Yeah. Do you ever have trouble getting them off of a cow?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, a horse like cat play, a great horse, when you cue them to quit and go get another one, they worry that, are you sure? Are you sure? You get that feeling they want to make another turn or two. And you'll see, if you ever watch Tim's show, you'll see when I do quit a cow, a lot of times I let him make the last turn or two, because it just takes him a minute to come off that adrenaline rush that he's in the middle of. It's like, can't just shock him into quit. I just let him know, hey, finish up, and he makes his last couple moves. And some horses will even get so low in that moment that they'll lay down, and then they got to stand back up because they were so in the moment and they were creeping down, and they weren't thinking about quitting. They were thinking about competing. It means a lot to them. So definitely, sometimes you got to pull them off the cow.
Well, I do find it really fascinating to learn more about cutting horses because they do have to do so much of it themselves at the highest levels. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that information around all of the various aspects that go into making sure that he can be as successful as he has been.
I think it takes a great team. It takes a great owner. It takes support from everybody, and it takes the love for the horse from a group of people to make it as successful as it's been for him. And I'm very grateful to have him and his owner and the people that have helped me keep him healthy, and the vets, and he's never had, a knock on wood, a major issue because of great maintenance and support from the owner for us to be able to do that, and management on the team's part. And, I mean, I guess we've pretty much covered his personality, I hope. But I guess all I have to say is I hope I have another reason, another horse to be on this podcast again, because these special ones are pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Sometimes once in a lifetime.
Yeah. Honestly, what I thought was really impressive was in 2023, you were the reserve world champion, but you had you had gone to half of the shows as the person that got the world.
Yeah.
You don't go to as many shows as these other people, but you're always up there with him. So it's just really impressive.
Well, thank you. I mean, that is what's incredible about him. I mean, and I think that he very well could have set a record that year on even a horse to make the finals with that few amount of runs. And all that proves is his dominance and consistency. And it's not that I don't go to shows. I probably go to as many or more shows than most people in the world. It's just that I didn't have to show him because he did so well when I did show him. I didn't have to pack him around every little cutting at every little fairgrounds. He was dominant anywhere I went, and I could almost, a little maybe arrogant, confident on my part, but I could hold off until the fall and know that pretty much count on the fact that he was going to win some of the bigger ones that helped him qualify. Then that's been incredible. He's won an unbelievable amount of money for a horse that won the majority of it from the end of his 6-year-old year to the end of his 8-year-old year. The most, I would venture to say 90 to 95% of horses that win the kind of money he's won most of it in their 3, 4, and 5 and 6-year-old years. I mean, those are the high earning years. After that, it becomes, you got to win it in smaller chunks. So he's really, really been an amazing horse in that way. He went into the Hall of Fame, the Cutting Horse Hall of Fame this year. And that's quite the feat for the way he did it. And he was a very good young horse too, but these last few years have been incredible.
Yeah, I did see he did well with his previous owner when he was a 5-year-old in particular. But yeah, it's been really cool to see the success that you've had with him. And that's very exciting that he's in the Hall of Fame now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. First one I've been able to put in the Hall of Fame, or I should say that I've been able to ride to the Hall of Fame, through the Hall of Fame journey.
Well, hopefully not the last.
Yeah, I hope not. Hope not.
If this conversation has inspired you to learn more about your own horse's individual needs and motivations, you can get an EQBI profile at our website, which is www.equineperformanceidentities.com. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and thought the content was interesting, I would love if you could share it with anyone else who you think would feel the same. I'd also really appreciate if you could take a quick minute to give this podcast a rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss any future episodes about the top horses in hunters, jumpers, equitation, dressage, eventing, reining, cutting, there's probably more that I'm forgetting, but make sure you click that follow button too. Well, thanks for listening to me, Caitlin Hendry, and I hope you tune in to the next episode of Inside Equine Minds.